When Randall and Hopkirk Deceased begins, it does something structurally unusual. It kills one of its leads. Jeff Hopkirk is murdered in the first episode. That much is clear. What is less typical is what follows. Hopkirk does not exit the narrative. He does not become memory, motive, or tragedy. He becomes a condition. He returns as a ghost, visibly only to his partner, Marty Randall. From that moment onward, the series is built on a single elegant constraint. One half of the detective partnership cannot be seen. This is not merely a supernatural flourish. It is the organising principle of the programme. Randall and Hopkirk Deceased is not fundamentally about ghosts. It is about what happens to partnership when recognition disappears. The invisible partner is not absent, he is structurally displaced. And that displacement shapes everything. A conventional detective series relies on symmetry. Two partners share the field. They divide interviews, chase leads, compare impressions. The audience may follow one or the other, but both exist in the same visible world. They can corroborate each other's accounts. They can speak. They can be contradicted. Here, that symmetry is broken. Hopkirk can observe, but cannot testify. He can enter rooms, but cannot address suspects. He can follow conspirators, but cannot arrest them. His knowledge is complete, but his authority is null. Randall, meanwhile, must act on information he cannot publicly source. The cases of the week therefore operate under a peculiar tension. Randall frequently knows more than he can justify. He must fabricate plausible explanations for insights he did not visibly acquire. He must behave as though his deductions are intuitive, when, in fact, they are whispered from beyond the visible frame. The detective's credibility becomes the true battleground. What makes this especially interesting is that the series never treats Hopkirk's invisibility as horror. There is no dread in his presence, no metaphysical anxiety. The ghost is not uncanny, he is procedural. He attends meetings, he reads documents over shoulders, he stands beside his partner in the office. He offers commentary, advice, and irritation. His condition is domesticated into routine. And that domestication is key. Because what the series presents, week after week, is not the shock of the supernatural, but the logistics of it. The question is never, how can a ghost exist? The question is always, how can a partnership function when one partner cannot be acknowledged? That is a workplace problem. The invisible partner reframes the genre. In most private eye dramas of the late 1960s, the detective operates alone or in visible tandem. Authority structures such as the police, the criminal underworld, their clients respond to what they can see. Reputation is built through encounters, through being known. Randall must build reputation on his own. The world only ever sees one detective. Hopkirk, though present, becomes uncredited labour. He gathers intelligence that Randall must claim. He risks exposure in spaces Randall cannot enter. He provides the breakthrough moments that move the narrative forward, yet no one in the story can thank him. The audience can, but the canonical world cannot. This creates a subtle shift in alignment. We are always aware that the visible detective is only half the engine. The partnership is intact, but the recognition of it is not. There is something quietly modern in that idea. The invisible partner is a figure of unseen work, of contribution without acknowledgement, of presence without status. Hopkirk's predicament is not simply that he is dead. It is that he cannot be validated. He cannot sign paperwork. He cannot accept payment. He cannot confront a suspect and demand answers. His authority has evaporated, even though his competence has not. Randall, in turn, must constantly manage this imbalance. He must translate invisible knowledge into actionable form. He must endure the raised eyebrows of clients and the skepticism of adversaries. His insight appears uncanny because its source cannot be disclosed. The partnership survives, but it survives under strain. And yet the tone of the series remains light. This is not a tragedy about loss. It is not a lament for friendship interrupted. Instead, the programme treats the ghostly condition as an extension of the partnership's existing dynamic. Hopkirk remains dry, occasionally exasperated, occasionally amused. Randall remains fallible, sometimes flustered, often improvisational. Their exchanges continue much as they might have before the murder, only now one half of the dialogue is unheard by the room. The series derives much of its energy from that asymmetry. Randall reacts to comments no one else hears. He pauses in mid-conversation to respond to an invisible prompt. He appears distracted, erratic, occasionally unstable. To the outside world, he seems alone. To us, he is not. This creates a particular viewing experience. We are always in on the secret. We see the ghost moving through space. We see him observing the suspects. We see him discovering clues that Randall will later use. The audience possesses a double perspective, the visible world and the hidden one. That double perspective generates gentle tension, not fear, but anticipation. How will Randall justify this deduction? How will he explain his sudden certainty? How long before someone questions his sanity? The stakes are social rather than supernatural. The threat is not that the ghost will vanish. It is that Randall's credibility might. In this sense, Randall and Hopkirk deceased becomes a drama about legitimacy. Who is authorized to speak? Whose testimony counts? What forms of knowledge are admissible? Hopkirk's information is accurate, but it cannot enter the official record. It must be laundered through Randall's visible presence. That act of laundering, of converting invisible knowledge into acceptable narrative, becomes the series' recurring maneuver. The invisible partner does the work, the visible partner does the explaining. Together, they form a complete detective. Separately, they are compromised. It is tempting to read this as metaphor, but the series does not insist upon it. It does not moralize the condition. It does not dwell on injustice. Instead, it uses the constraint to generate stories. Yet the constraint itself remains fascinating because it alters the emotional texture of the detective genre. Most private eye series are concerned with isolation. The detective stands apart from institutions, from clients and suspects. He is self-contained. Randall is never truly alone. Even when physically solitary, he is accompanied. This companionship softened the edges of the genre. The loneliness typical of the private investigator is replaced with a kind of constant, if invisible, solidarity. The office may appear half empty, but narratively it never is. There is also an inversion at work. In many ghost stories, the living are unaware of the dead. Here, that remains true for almost everyone except the protagonist. The detective, usually the most grounded and rational figure in the room, is the only one who sees beyond the surface. This reverses expectations. Randall's belief in the ghost is not madness, it is accuracy, but he must perform normality to maintain trust. That performance becomes another layer of labour. He must calibrate his reactions, choose when to respond to Hopkirk's comments, decide when to ignore them in public. The invisible partner requires visible restraint. The show's durability lies in how elegantly it sustains this device, because the ghost cannot interact directly with the material world in the same way as the living. Each episode must invent scenarios in which observation matters as much as confrontation. Following suspects, reading hidden documents, overhearing conspiracies, watching what others assume is private, the series becomes structurally about access. Hopkirk has access to spaces Randall cannot enter unnoticed. Randall has access to legitimacy Hopkirk cannot possess. The partnership is therefore a mechanism of exchange. Information moves one way, authority moves the other. Importantly, the series never resolves this imbalance. Hopkirk does not regain corporeality. Randall does not acquire the ability to make the invisible visible to others. The constraint remains fixed. That fixed constraint gives the series its identity. It is not a detective show that occasionally features a ghost. It is a detective show built entirely on the condition of invisibility. Every case must bend around that premise. Every interaction must account for it. Every resolution must convert unseen action into visible justice. What this provides is a curious tonal blend. The stakes are real, crimes occur, people are threatened, mysteries are solved. But the emotional centre of the series lies in the partnership itself. The audience returns not merely for the case, but for the dynamic between the seen and the unseen. Hopkirk's commentary, Randall's frustration, their shared problem solving. The ghost becomes less a supernatural presence and more a structural colleague. The afterlife is rendered bureaucratic, and perhaps that is the quiet brilliance of the program. It does not ask what happens after death in cosmic terms. It asks what happens to a working relationship when one party can no longer be publicly acknowledged. The answer is not rupture, it is adaptation. The partnership persists, but in altered form. Randall and Hopkirk, deceased, therefore becomes a study in asymmetrical collaboration. It imagines a professional bond that survives the loss of visibility. One partner acts, one partner observes. Both are necessary. By embedding this constraint at the heart of its format, the series achieves something distinctive within late 1960s British television. It retains the pleasures of the detective story, the investigation, the deduction, and the resolution, while layering them with a constant reminder that not all contribution is recognised. The invisible partner is always there, working, watching, advising, uncredited within the world of the story, but indispensable to its success. And that, ultimately, is the enduring fascination of Randall and Hopkirk, deceased. It is not a ghost story about fear. It is not a detective story about isolation. It is a drama about partnership under impossible conditions and about the quiet persistence of collaboration, even when one half cannot be seen. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed that. I will be back on another day with another TV show. Bye.